Yo, Wyatt begins in like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Wyatt, and I'm your host, Wyatt O'Brien Evans. Grrr, woof, goddammit, woof, woof, woof. Arf. My listeners, we've got an extra special heaping helping of Wyatt. Why? Because we're going international, y'all. Traveling across the pond to merry old England to London. Oh, yeah. Now, today's guest is a luminary who has created Blackout UK, a respected digital destination that mobilizes gay, bi, and trans men of African descent in the United Kingdom, the UK, to work together to address shared challenges and create a podium for their voices. So buckle up, y'all. His story, as Star Trek's Mr. Spock would say, is fascinating, simply fascinating. So we'll sit down with him in just a few. And yo, after the show, visit my online home, WyattEvans.com. That's WYATTEVANS.com. The go-to destination for LGBTQ news, features, commentary, and entertainment. WyattEvans.com is visited by over 100 countries on the regular. All I can say is, yeah, baby. And at WyattEvans.com, you will find my sizzling, my smoking hot, HAWT hot, Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels. The current installment is titled Frenzy! Yeah, Frenzy. And Frenzy is chock full of masculine romance, intrigue, danger, and the blazing, sizzling, scorching heat of 1,000 suns of erotic passion and steaming nastiness. All right, everybody, get ready for this. Back by popular demand is Madam Pussy Galore Cock-a-Doodle-Doo, Drag Queen Supreme. Oh, Mr. Wyatt O'Brien Evans. Yes, I'm back. Did you miss me? Did all my fans out there in listening land, in radio land, in everybody's land, did you miss me? Ha. I just know you did. Are you freaking serious? Hell no. How did your peddling of that lewd and lascivious, god-awful book turn out? And what's the title again? Oh, Mr. Wyatt O'Brien Evans, you just irritate the hell out of me. Just clutch the pearls and stop the train, because you're just jealous. And you know what the title of my new book is. My new book is titled, well, okay. I'll tell you again. My listeners, it's called Popular Penetration. How to treat your man's big old cucumber in just the right way. Lord have mercy. Oh, that's right, Mr. Wyatt O'Brien Evans. And everyone, you can get it at Amazon and Barnes & Nobles and other fine adult establishments, adult entertainment boutiques and establishments and all of those wonderful quality places. Oh, you mean porn shops.
Oh, just stop it, Mr. Well, I never.
Oh, somehow I doubt that. You do it every chance you get, and you know this. And hey, before you say another word, before another word comes out of your mouth, I heard through the grapevine that your so-called book tour was a massive fail, that you only sold like 8 books.
That is not true. Oh, Mr. Wyatt O'Brien Evans, that is not true. I sold like, 18.
That many? 18?
Well, Mr. Wyatt O'Brien Evans, I don't care about you because it was a success. My book tour was a success. It was a success.
Pray tell, what is your definition of success when your book only sells 18 copies?
Well, Mr. Wyatt O'Brien Evans, if you must know, it's a success. The book tour was a success because that's where I got my turbo lift. I got my turbo lift there.
You got an elevator? Are you for real? Wait a minute, madam. You live in a hole in the wall. So how would a turbo lift fit up in there?
Oh, Mr. Well, you're such a silly boy. Turbo Lift is a man, and now he's my man.
Wait a minute. I am screeching my effing head. What are you talking about?
Mr. Wyatt O'Brien Evans, and all my listeners out there, because you all just listen to me. You don't care about him. You only care about me, and I know that. I get letters. I get all of these letters that say that I'm the best thing on this show. You know that? That's why I came back, because I know that you need me. But anyway, I digress. Anyway, listen. Mr. Turbolift was at the reading, and I have to say, he's turbo. He's huge in all the right places. Let me tell you something! Mr. Wyatt O'Brien Evans! You're unhinged!
As Arnold says, get out. Just get the hell out. She's gone. She's gone. Now, y'all, it's high time to meet our very special guest for this installment of Wyatt. This chap is the founding editor of Blackout UK, the well-renowned nonprofit social enterprise that mobilizes gay, bi, and trans men of African descent in the United Kingdom to work together to address shared challenges and to create a podium for their voices. And check this out. This gent has one hell of a CV, one hell of a resume. He's an academic. He's a producer, a writer, a lecturer and public speaker, and he's an LGBTQ and social racial justice advocate. The title change agent doesn't adequately describe him. So without further ado, Wyatt welcomes Dr. Robert Berkeley. Talk at me. How the hell are ya?
Oh, I'm very well. It's a really, really great pleasure to be here. And what a build-up. I hope I can live up to that accolade.
Well, you know what? Like I tell my guests, you can always hire me as your PR guy.
I probably need you to follow me around all the time. Just doing
hey, okay. That works for me. Well, listen, Dr. Berkeley, I want to thank you for dropping by Wyatt. And so I'm going to play with you a bit and call you Doc Rob. Yeah, Doc Rob. Yes,
hey,
yes.
Why not?
Cool. So you describe yourself, and I quote, an award-winning busybody, recovering academic, civic tech geek, and community policy nerd, end quote. I love it. Now, tell us more, because inquiring minds want to know.
Well, I think that you keep on trying stuff, don't you? And that's life, isn't it? You see an opportunity and you take it and you learn from it and you go on to the next thing. So I've done a range of things, and I'm a recovering academic because really I found academia was great, but as Audrey Lorde says, survival is not an academic skill. We need to be engaged and be alongside those who are in need. And so the ivory tower wasn't for me.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? You're quite the overachiever. I mean, you're an academic, you're a writer, producer, you're a lecturer, public speaker, you're a change agent. You've got to have some really mad, crazy time management skills. How do you fit it all in?
I don't know. One day I'll find out. But you just do, don't you? I mean, I know you're prolific, right? And I know that you, even pulling together a show, it takes time and it takes effort, and if you want to do it, you get it done.
That is very, very true. Very, very true. And you want to make sure that, Rob, you're creating a quality product, and you definitely have done that all through your career. A little later, of course, we're going to really dig into Blackout UK. Mm-hmm. But for now, delineate its mission for us.
In a nutshell, we need each other. And I don't know if you've had this experience where you're in a majority white space, Black people see each other, and either you go towards each other, or sometimes people go in the opposite direction. And that, to me, suggests that we've got some work to do to build up our self-esteem, but also seeing each other as valuable means you can see yourself as valuable. And for a lot of young men growing up in London, they're told over and over again that they're worthless. And that has an impact on their relationships. That's why we see some street violence, we see some distancing, when actually we could be each other's greatest allies.
Exactly. Well put. Rob, let's travel back through the corridors of time. Get your backstory. So, you were born and raised in the United Kingdom, the UK?
That's right. And I still live really just a few miles away from where I was born.
Wow.
Quite a big family who are from Grenada. And I'm the youngest of 7. So.
Wow. Amazing. I love it. I love it. Okay. I always like to ask my guest this particular question. It gives myself and the audience a little more of an insight into the person. So here it is. Just what was Rob like as a little boy, as a little nipper? What 3 characteristics would best describe you as a little kid, a little boy?
Curious. The one who gets the toy on Christmas Day, and by Boxing Day it's in 100 pieces. Restless, I guess, would be another one. I had a boundless energy. I might be paying for that now, maybe, but there's just a general excitement around learning and finding out what was around the corner. And I remember being quite quiet.
Really?
Yeah. This doesn't quite seem to match, but I do remember being able to deal with long periods of quiet. So, and valuing those. I grew up in a house, which is amazing, but there were lots of people in it.
Well, you know, Rob, they say that the quiet ones are the ones that you got to look out for.
You may say that. I couldn't possibly comment.
Let's fast forward to your adulthood, to your professional career. Did a particular salient experience put you on the road of LGBTQ social and racial justice advocacy?
Yeah. At 18, I went to university, and I went from a neighborhood a household which was full of Black people, but a neighborhood that is now one of the greatest concentrations of Black people in London, to being one of 8 Black men in a year of 3,000 students at Oxford University. So that dislocation, that having to explain everything from first principles to people who were supposedly intelligent, that I guess whet my appetite, because I could see there that those people who were come from families that were entitled knew how to work the system, and I wanted that for my siblings and people who weren't going to get the opportunity.
Absolutely. Rob, what do you have your doctorate in? What field of study?
In educational studies. I studied. I tell people naughty children. So the idea was to look at those children who don't make it through school, and that pipeline from people referral units, as we call them, children who are excluded from school, to prison. It was just a decision made by a teacher who may be exasperated, who maybe doesn't have the resources or the patience to deal with a child who might arrive with more than the standard set of issues. That little decision often ends up with that person in prison within a matter of years.
Wow. Okay. Speaking of exasperation, you've stated that your impatience with injustice and exasperation by wasted potential has led you to volunteer on a number of diverse boards. I love that. First of all, it makes a lot of sense. And tell us about your work with these boards.
It's interesting because I realize that I now have qualifications on paper, and the accent. My accent is a little bit posher now than it was when I was when I was younger. To be able to challenge some people who are entitled, and so I'd be on boards of things like Stonewall, which I guess is like GLAD for the UK, and the Equality and Diversity Forum and others, and would remind them about who they were there for. Sometimes you get caught up in the award ceremonies and the glad handing and and always wanting to manage the organisation's profile much more than actually the work. So I don't mind reminding people about the work.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. From 2009 to 2014, you were director of the Racial Justice, think tank, Running Me Trust. Would you tell us about your role, and could you describe the impact of that think tank?
So Runnymede is probably our most august of racial justice organisations. Founded in 1968, that summer, when the world changed for many people.
Wow.
And had been doing really steady, solid research work, just giving the ammunition to the activists to challenge changes in policy and practice that were leading to worse outcomes for people of colour. But interestingly, it was 42 years in before it appointed a black man as its chief exec, and that was me. So interesting that how even in work around racial justice, it's easier to point the finger than it is to examine internally what's going on.
Okay.
So it was an amazing experience to be in some of those spaces and bringing messages from communities that very rarely got into those spaces to our political leaders. Did I change anything? It changed me more than I probably changed the world.
Interesting.
But that maybe that's the way that all policy goes, or all politics goes. We worked really hard, and when you realise that it's not that your message isn't getting through, it's that your message is unpalatable. That you start to develop a level of cynicism around when you're constantly reminding people of what democracy is, of what basic fundamental human rights are, and they will turn around 6 months later and say, "Oh, I didn't realise racism was so bad in the UK." Yeah. So it was fascinating in terms of understanding the way politics works, but also fascinating in terms of really supporting activists who do the work, right? Who really do engage day in, day out in the knowledge that they may not be listened to 100 times, but they're still there for the 101st, and I really admire that.
Okay. Yeah, that's I know what I want to say. That's a lot of food for thought. It really, really is. I'm going to unravel that thread just a little bit more. You said that the experience has changed you. Rob, has it made you more hopeful, more optimistic that change can be effectuated?
I wouldn't say more hopeful. I think I think I had a real belief in evidence and in knowledge. So I genuinely thought for a long time that actually, these people just need someone to take them to one side. You could sit down with your 45th president, for example. You could just sit down with him but if you explained, he'd get it. Because we're all human and we all have a blind spot. So fine, so you just had to explain. And I guess I left wiser in understanding that actually unequal systems are good for some people. Mm-hmm. And they will do what they can to maintain that imbalance. But I also left much more intentional about what I do with my time. So,
Oh, okay.
And so I have a happier, maybe not happier, but certainly more fulfilled life now that I spend my time working to support people who are in a position to be able to do something with that support.
I got it. You know, I'm so glad to have you on, Wyatt, because writer to writer, you are so prolific and you write in so many different areas, you know, encompassing education, social organizing, and social justice. I mean, your bylines have appeared in prestigious publications like The Guardian and The Independent, you know? I mean, I want to be like you when I grow up. So, truly.
Don't grow up.
truly.
Don't do that.
So tell us more about, you know, writing for these different areas and you know what influences you to write about a variety of issues, subjects, that sort of thing.
I think for me, I write because if I didn't, I don't know where those ideas would go. Right. So there's a desire to articulate, and I see that as part of a kind of human dialogue. Right. If you don't share your ideas, if you don't engage with other people's ideas, how are you going to? There's a positive process of learning from that. So I write, and I write anyway. And sometimes it happens to coincide with a newspaper or a television show finding that thing of interest. I worked in the media. I worked in the BBC for a few years. And that really gave me some insight into really how ephemeral, how they call it tomorrow's fish and chip paper. You know, really a story that a journalist is telling me is the most important thing. They really need you to write something about that straight away. You know, we must engage with this. And then tomorrow they're on a completely different subject. That's a luxury which the powerful have. I guess I've written about the same thing, but the same thing has been relevant in lots of different spaces. So I write about what the relationships between people, and I write about just to try to nail the lie.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So when our politicians think they can easily sidestep the question or the action that they need to take, I'd like to just remind everyone that that's what they're doing, and the politicians, so you can vote them out.
Okay. Speaking of the British Broadcasting Corporation, the BBC, could you touch on your experience working for the BBC? And you can correct me if I'm wrong. Recently, I believe they're having a problem with diversity, and I think they hired a female who is supposed to make it better.
Yeah.
Okay.
June, they did appoint, is very, very talented and incredibly charming, and that will do her very well in that situation. So she may have some success. But I think when I left, I left with a bit of a broadside against the director of content, and just said, even if you were to hit those targets that you've set for the newspapers, what would actually change? So she may well be very successful in shifting the numbers of people on cookery shows, or the number of people who happened to appear on the Great British Bake Off. But will that shift power? And I realised that was what I was interested in engaging with, is work which actually might change the future rather than change the melanin content on my screen.
Okay. Oh, congratulations. You were recently appointed as Simon Industrial Fellow at the University of Manchester. Give us the 411 on that.
It was a great institution. And the fellowship that I received, it allows you to distill the work you might be doing in the commercial sector. So this was around the work I've been doing in media at the BBC, and gives you some space to have a think about it, which is a massive luxury. So I'm sure you'll appreciate just some time to sit back and have a series of kind of conversations with some young minds, with some fresh minds, and I realised that even the work with Blackout, you can get really sucked into a Twitter feed and a media agenda, which is just always churning. Because you want to, Nicki Minaj comes out with a new song, you want to be able to talk to people about it, right?
Exactly.
But that's an investment of time that actually means that you don't get time to reread that Baldwin or to have a conversation with some of the young people to find out what it's like to be an 18, 19-year-old now.
Exactly. Doc Rob, I did it again. When you mentioned the word voices, you gave me the perfect segue, because I want to touch on your lecturing in and out of the UK. You're Mr. Melodias Voice. I mean, you've got a voice.
So I've got a face for radio, that's what they say.
Well, actually, you have a face and voice for radio. So, and in public too. But tell us about the lecturing. First of all, tell us where you've lectured, what you lecture on, and how do you connect with the audience? How do you manage to keep their attention?
I'm just me, right? In some ways, I invite people into to have a think. Now, a lot of other people on those circuits are invited because they can make people cry, they can make people jump up and down. And I don't advocate that. So in some ways, I think there's time for that, absolutely. But I've never been a preacher. I've never been an actor. I'm really interested in how ideas travel and how people take a nugget from an hour or 45 minutes worth of lecture and do something with it. I would hate to think I had wandered, had added to the greenhouse gases by flying places. To have people say, "Oh, that was really entertaining." That's somebody else's job. That made me think. That's what I'm after.
So in other words, you don't have a particular shtick. You're just, as Oprah would say, you're your authentic self.
I find that easier.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Okay. And you also produce and present short form documentaries. Tell us a little bit about that.
I think that was really at the start of working on Blackout. I was really concerned that gay and bi and trans men would spend all their time explaining themselves to white gay men or to straight people or to just to everybody else, but never to turn in and have a conversation with each other. And documentary is wonderful for sparking new ways of looking at the familiar. So I'm on the board of a great organisation called the Doc Society that thinks about impact around documentary. And you can make some really beautiful documentary, that pleases the film school critics. But unless it lands, unless you're inviting people to share their lives often and share parts of, and you're taking liberties because you edit it. So, I'm going to be with you all day, but the film is only 35 minutes long. So you can end up, it's quite a powerful position behind the camera and in the edit room. What kind of liberty are you taking if you don't tell that story well? And so I wanted to tell or help people tell stories where they understood who the audience was and were intentional about what they said and didn't worry so much about what that other person who you don't know and who doesn't really care for you anyway might think. Let's talk our truth, and the truth will, as they say, set you free.
That's well said. Well said. Okay, let's jump into Blackout UK. Rob, you are its founding editor. When was it established, and what was the impetus for creating it?
It emerged. I think we picked a start date, but I think we were already doing it before then. So 2016, I think, is our formal start. And we had our first event was a screening. Our first public event was a screening of Moonlight, actually. So, which tells you a lot about the way we were thinking at the time, which was about let's gather our stories, because we started with three of us, the other two amazing people who we were talking, and I said, well, I've never worked with another black gay man.
Oh, okay.
And I had been, on these boards and around the HIV sector, and I just thought it was odd. So we thought we'd try it. And from that kind of three people, we start to think about how you might scale that so that 300 people get engaged and work with each other and understand each other better, and start to respect each other a bit more. Hopefully, we'll scale to the 30,000 and the 40,000, and that'll be everybody in touch with each other.
I like that. And according to your website, and I quote, "We mobilize gay, bi, and or trans men of African descent in the UK to work together to address shared challenges, create platforms for our voices, build networks to support our aspiration, and enable us to play a more active role in the communities of which we are part." Expound on that. That's a big big bite.
It is, and it's a big ambition. I often intimidate our newbies by saying we started an organisation to save our lives. Right? Essex said that's what we want, and that's what we sought to do. And isn't it amazing that there wasn't an organisation to save our lives beforehand? Right? So So we were often disregarded because we don't have the number in this country to influence economic markets massively. We're I wonder if it's by nature. I don't know, but it certainly the way that our culture has developed. We're not always up front at the front of the queue, demanding rights for us. So often we let our sisters do it, and we follow their leadership, which is following is a skill as well. So that's okay. But I suppose we just needed to think about what that would look like, what that would feel like to be in a community of care, rather than just the beneficiary.
Okay. This what you just said is a perfect door opener for this question. What are the specific and unique challenges that confront gay, bi, and trans males of African descent in the UK? And how does Blackout UK work to address those issues?
Well, they're pretty similar, I imagine, to those that are faced in the States. So, racism, right? So, the really interesting exchanges over the last few months when we've had to remind our government that we invented and exported racism, not we're not somehow immune to it. So we, as Black men, are more likely to be unemployed. We are less likely to get the results of our effort from our university study. We are more likely to be stopped and searched in the street. We are more likely to be sentenced to longer in jail if we get in front of the judge. We are more likely to die younger because of the weathering effects of racism. So that's a big bundle of things. When you pull away the support of the networks around you, because somebody has told them that your sexuality means you are beyond the pale, that you should not be part of the family, that you should somehow hide your head in shame. Imagine the impact of racism coupled with having no networks to support your resilience. So those I think are our challenges. But what's heartening, what's amazing, and what gives me great strength, I guess, is the way in which day in, day out the people are there. And on a Saturday night, sometimes it's a dance hall where you have to show out, but often it's in the office where you have to bite your tongue and find a different way. And I think we are massively resourceful. And I want us to think about a way in which we can share that resource, because sharing it multiplies it. If you understand, in some ways, the ways that power works, if you try and hoard it and keep it under a bushel, it withers. Actually, if you want to grow power, you give, and that I found is how I've had such a great set of experiences. If you share, if you give, if you think not only of the next buck, have the luxury to think of not only the next buck. You find that given time, it comes back in abundance.
That's profound. Rob, you're absolutely correct. That leads me to ask you this question. What has been the impact of the COVID pandemic on Black, gay, bi, trans men in the UK, particularly mentally and emotionally? I'm an advocate, journalist, and subject matter expert. My focus is intimate partner violence and abuse, or IPVA, which is domestic violence and abuse within the LGBTQ community. So do you know if there has been an uptick in IPVA, amongst gay, bi, and trans men of African descent in the UK?
No, I don't know. I don't know. I do suspect, and I think that is part of our challenge here. We're not hearing number. I mean, we're not hearing the kind of numbers that government thinks are worth spending the greater money to get statistics together to do the intersectional work. So I hear anecdotally two things. One, firstly, is that the Black men are more likely to be single. So, and that has implications for their well-being over the long term, because society is not particularly well designed to deal with single men. And those that are in relationships often, some are happy, right? Don't get me wrong. But often there are people who are in relationships that are very imbalanced in terms of wealth or power, and in a situation where the two of you are in a house alone for 18 months while we've been on lockdown.
Right.
I think tensions can rise. We don't have many spaces that are owned by us or our community, or our community feel ownership over. And they were all taken away because we're in lockdown. Wow. So I think people have really struggled.
Wow. Okay. Let's swing back to Blackout UK. I believe you're now leading its development.
Yeah, I'm massively excited actually about the meetings I've been having today, but also the community that are supporting our efforts as we emerge from lockdown. We're creating a space. So that we've missed spaces, that we don't have many that we have ownership over. So we discovered that there was a bar in Brixton, which you probably know is a kind of heart of the Black community in London, throughout the 1970s, run by a woman, a Jamaican migrant who was bisexual. She ran it in her basement, and it became this real hub for Black men in particular. And it closed in 1981.
Wow.
And we're reopening it in 2021. Really excited about what that's going to deliver back at the heart of Brixton.
Well, congratulations on that. Has there been a change in Blackout UK's purpose or in mission since its creation?
Yeah, I suppose the mission has stayed the same, right? But the core belief that it's by connecting with each other and sharing what we have that we'll grow. But I guess maybe naively, 2015, 16, I thought it would be, let's just have an exchange of ideas. We could, in a rather genteel manner, write essays at each other. and that would be enough for our liberation. And I haven't really understood the depth of the alienation, the scale of the challenge, and so we responded to what we found. So we are doing bigger things. We're doing much more visible things, and we realise that people need to see each other and get to know each other in a way which a year on Zoom hasn't really enabled, and at the nightclub, I love house music, and I can't wait to get back on the dance floor. But again, it's not enough. It's not enough to shout in people's ear for a night. Is not relationship building.
I feel you. I totally feel you. Okay, so I was going to ask you. I think I think you've answered the question, but I'm going to ask you anyhow. What's in store for Blackout UK and yourself for the remainder of 2021? Do you have any specific events and dates attached to those events?
Dates are elusive right now because everyone's blinking and as they come back into the light out from lockdown. But UK Black Pride is the 2nd of July, and Pride in London is the 11th of September, unfortunately. But so we're using both of those dates to kind of bookend our festival in Brixton, which will include taking ballroom into Brixton Market. It will include a series of podcasts and live panels and intergenerational sound clashes, and so it's all kicking off for us right now. And then in September, after Pride, we relaunch Black Men Who Brunch, which is our once a month. Between 100 and 150 of us are coming together.
Wow.
To break bread, to share ideas, and we have a series of workshops, and then a live band and some comedy panels, and just again laughter and food, and just a sense of togetherness. Things we don't get.
And Lord knows we need more of that.
Absolutely.
So, how can us grown folk follow you, connect with you in Blackout UK? Could you give us your website address and your social media information?
Right. So we are BLKOUTUK.com and at BLKOUTUK on Twitter and Insta. We're on YouTube, again, BLKOUTUK. And actually, we really appreciate hearing from folk around, because it helps our imagination to hear that it doesn't have to be the way it is, in small ways and big ways. And so we're really inspired by the organising that goes on in other places, as well as among brothers and sisters here. But yeah, BLKOUTUK.com, that'll get us.
Well, Doc Rob.
Hey.
Listen, I had to say that before we ended this. Robert Berkeley, I want to thank you for visiting Wyatt, and you got to come back.
Oh, I'd love to. Been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. So there you have it. You can find the official Wyatt podcast page on WyattEvans.com, and the official hashtag is Wyatt on Air. If you want to be a guest on Wyatt, or you just have some comments or whatnot, email me at wyattonair@gmail.com. And you can follow me, Wyatt O'Brien Evans, your host, on Facebook.com/Wyatt O'Brien Evans. Now, O'Brien does not have an E, it's got an A. So remember that. On Twitter at Mr. Woe, MISTERWOE. On Instagram at Mr. Wyatt O, MRWYATTO. And be sure to check out my Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels, the latest being Frenzy. I said Frenzy. And its predecessor, Rage, all at WyattEvans.com. So until next time, y'all, woof, goddammit, woof, 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 woof. Arf!